Welcome back to the Cinema podcast. Today, I want to talk about something that I don't think enough people do reflection. Not because it is exciting, not because it gets likes on social media, but because I genuinely believe it's one of the most powerful habits you can build. We are so busy chasing the next goal, the next promotion, the next workout, the next paycheck, the next milestone, that we rarely stop and ask ourselves, how far have I actually come? Or am I even heading in the direction I want to go? Because if you are always moving but never reflecting, you can spend years climbing a ladder only to realize it was leaning against the wrong wall. Let's start here. Most people live life on autopilot. They wake up, go to work, come home, they watch TV, then they scroll on their phone, go to bed, and repeat. Weeks become months, months become years, and before they know it, 5 years have passed. Nothing really changed. Not because they didn't work hard, but because they never stopped long enough to think about where they were going. Reflection gives you direction. Without it, you are just moving. First truth. Reflection keeps you grateful. One of the biggest problems with always chasing success is you forget to appreciate what you already have. You finally reach a goal. Maybe you get into better shape. Maybe you move into your own place. Maybe you finally become financially independent. Maybe you accomplish something you've been working toward for years. Then, almost immediately, you start chasing the next thing. There's nothing wrong with ambition, but if you never stop to appreciate your progress, you will always feel behind. Think about climbing a mountain. If you only stare at the peak, you'll constantly feel like you are falling. But every once in a while, turn around. Look at how far you have already climbed. It reminds you that you are making progress, even if you are not at the top yet. Second, reflection helps you learn from mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody has bad days. Everybody has seasons where they fall short. The question isn't whether you fail. The question is, will you learn from it? Or will you repeat it? Failure without reflection becomes a pattern. Failure with reflection becomes wisdom. Think about professional athletes. After almost every game, they watch the footage, not because they enjoy seeing their mistakes, but because they know improvement comes from understanding them. Imagine if they never reviewed anything, they'd keep making those same mistakes over and over again. Life works the same way. Sometimes you have to look back so you can move forward. Third, reflection builds self awareness. One of the rarest qualities today is knowing yourself, knowing your strengths, your weaknesses, knowing what distracts you, knowing what drains your energy, knowing what brings you peace. Reflection helps you understand yourself, and once you understand yourself, you make better decisions. I've noticed something in my own life. Whenever I stop making time for the things that matter most, everything else starts feeling harder. My patience, it changes. My mindset, it changes. My focus, it changes. Reflection helped me notice that pattern. Now I know what needs to stay a priority instead of letting life pull me in every direction. Fourth, growth isn't always obvious day to day. Think about going to the gym. You don't look in the mirror after one workout expecting to see a completely different person. The changes happen slowly. One workout, one meal, one good decision at a time. Then, one day, you look back at an old picture and realize just how much you have changed. Life is the same. The biggest transformations usually happen so gradually. You don't even notice them until you stop and reflect. I remember wanting visible abs. That goal took months of consistency, meal after meal, workout after workout, saying no to foods that I wanted, showing up even when I did not feel like it. If I judged myself every single day, I'd probably think nothing was changing. But when I compare where I am now to where I started, the difference is obvious. Reflection reminds you that consistency works. Fifth, reflection keeps your priorities in order. It's easy to become busy. It's much harder to make sure you are busy doing the right things. Sometimes we spend so much time working that we neglect our relationships. Sometimes we chase money and forget our health. Sometimes we chase success and neglect our relationship with God. Reflection allows you to step back and ask, am I becoming the person I actually want to become? Because success means very little if you lose yourself while chasing it. That's why I try to remind myself what matters most: God first, my health, my work, my family, and the people I care about. Whenever I feel overwhelmed, reflection brings me back to those priorities. It reminds me what I am actually building, and more importantly, why I am building it. And that is something I think we all need to do more often. Not just once a year, not just on New Year's Eve, but regularly. Because reflection isn't a one time event, it is a habit, just like going to the gym, just like reading, just like praying. The more consistently you reflect, the more intentional your life becomes. 6. Reflection helps you recognize God's faithfulness. I think one of the biggest mistakes we make is only praying for what's next. We pray for the next opportunity, the next breakthrough, the next blessing, the next chapter. But how often do we stop and thank God for everything He's already done? Think about your life 5 years ago. There were probably things you prayed for that you now take for granted. Maybe it was a job, place to live, better health, more confidence, more peace. At one point, those things were prayers. Now they are part of your everyday life. Reflection reminds you just how faithful God has been. And when you remember his faithfulness in the past, it's easier to trust him with your future. Seventh, reflection exposes the habits that are holding you back. It's easy to blame circumstances, to blame other people, to blame bad luck. But when you are honest with yourself, sometimes the biggest obstacle is the person in the mirror. That's not meant to discourage you. It's actually empowering. Because if you are the problem, you can also become the solution. Think about someone trying to lose weight. They say they are doing everything right, but when they honestly reflect, they realize they are eating more than they thought. They are skipping workouts, staying up too late. Reflection removes excuses. It replaces opinions with truth, and the truth gives you something to improve. Eighth, you can't improve what you refuse to evaluate. Imagine owning a business and never checking your finances, never asking customers for feedback, never looking at what's working and what isn't. Eventually, the business would struggle, not because success was not possible, but because nothing was being evaluated. Your life deserves that same level of attention. Your habits, your relationships, your faith, your mindset. Take time to evaluate them because what gets evaluated gets improved. Ninth, reflection builds wisdom. Experience alone does not make someone wise. There are people who repeat the same mistakes for 20 years. Then there are people who make a mistake once, reflect on it, learn from it, and then never repeat it again. The difference isn't experience, it is reflection. Wisdom comes from taking life's lessons seriously. Think about an older person you respect. Maybe it is a grandparent, a mentor, a coach. Chances are they don't just have knowledge because of their age. They have wisdom because they've spent time thinking about what life has taught them. That's something every one of us can start doing today. 10th, don't only reflect on your failures, reflect on your victories too. I think a lot of driven people struggle with this. They achieve something, celebrate for 5 minutes, and then immediately move on to the next goal. But if you never acknowledge your progress, you'll always feel like you are falling behind. Celebrate the discipline, celebrate the consistency, celebrate the promises you've kept to yourself, not because you have finished, but because you've grown. Growth deserves gratitude. 11th, reflection gives your future direction. If you don't know where you've been, you will struggle to know where you are going. Reflection helps you identify patterns. It shows you what is working. It reveals what is not. And once you know that, your next step becomes much clearer. Every season has something to teach you. Don't rush into the next one before you have learned the lesson from this one. 12. The strongest people ask themselves hard questions, not easy ones. Questions like, am I becoming the person I said I wanted to become? Have I been spending enough time with God? Am I making excuses? Have I been treating people well? Am I using my time wisely? What's one thing I need to change? Those questions are not always comfortable, but growth rarely is. Here's something I want to challenge you to do. At the end of every week, take 10 minutes, put your phone away, sit somewhere quiet, and ask yourself 3 questions. What went well this week? What did not go well? What am I going to do differently next week? If you did that every week for a year, imagine how much you'd learn about yourself. Imagine how much you'd grow. The truth is, most people do not need more information. They need more reflection. They already know they should exercise. They already know they should spend less time on their phone. They already know they should invest more time in their faith. The problem is not a lack of knowledge, it's a lack of honesty. Reflection forces honesty, and honesty creates change. So, before we end today's episode, I want to leave you with this. Don't be afraid to pause. The world will tell you to keep moving, keep chasing, keep doing more. But sometimes the greatest progress comes from taking a step back, looking at your life honestly, being grateful for how far you have come, learning from where you've fallen short, and making sure the direction you are walking still matches the life you are trying to build. Reflection isn't about living in the past, it's about making better decisions for your future. So, this week, take a few minutes, turn off the distractions, spend time with God. Look back before you move forward. You might be surprised by how much you've grown and by what still needs to change. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Sin and Life podcast. If this episode made you stop and think, be sure to follow the podcast, leave a rating, and share it with someone who could use this reminder. Until next time, keep growing, keep learning, keep reflecting, and keep ascending. I'll catch you in the next episode of Ascend and Life.